Russian President Vladimir Putin is giving the Wagner Group an ultimatum: swear allegiance to Russia or leave for Belarus. In remarks to the Russian people, Putin addressed the revolt by the Russian mercenaries with an attempted show of strength, commending Russia's military and law enforcement for stopping a civil war. ABC News chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell has this report from Ukraine.
This morning, Russian President Vladimir Putin angrily denouncing the mutiny against him after a one-day rebellion that shook the foundations of his two-decade-long rule. Putin accusing the mutineers of betrayal, claiming an armed uprising would have been suppressed anyway, even though they actually got within 120 miles of Moscow. Putin didn't mention either Wagner, the private military company whose mercenaries marched against Russia's military leaders, or its chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin. Putin tried to project strength and unity when at the height of the crisis there was neither. He gave the Wagner troops an ultimatum: swear allegiance to your country, go back home or leave for Belarus. Putin's recorded statement following Prigozhin's first address since the uprising too. The leader of the Wagner private military company saying it was a protest, not a coup, against attempts to dissolve his forces into the regular Russian army, slated to begin next week, claiming he stopped the advance short of Moscow to avoid shedding Russian blood and that he didn't want to overthrow the Putin government. Putin speaking to military and law enforcement officers in Moscow this morning, thanking them for what he says was stopping a civil war. President Biden weighing in publicly for the first time since the uprising, stressing that while the US and NATO allies weren't involved, that their continued coordination is key to what comes next.
I will keep making sure that our allies and our partners are closely aligned in how we are reading and responding to the situation.
It was the war in Ukraine that brought this conflict in Russia to a head. Putin's men now under pressure to hold back a Ukrainian counteroffensive on multiple fronts.
Our thanks to Ian Pannell in Ukraine. Let's get more analysis with former senior official at the Department of Defense, Wendy Anderson. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us. I want to know, given your experience, what is your reaction to the recent developments with the Wagner Group?
Well, one thing that I've been thinking about nonstop for the last 3 to 4 days is that famous Russian, Lenin line: there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen. Only in this case, it's been days. I'll tell you, when I was listening to President Putin speak last night, I was really listening very closely to what he said. He said, you, the Wagner Group and Prigozhin, you downed Russian helos, you killed our pilots, you threatened the country of Russia existentially with your attack. I would have crushed your rebellion had it continued. Your commanders are traitors, but despite all of that, you, oh great Russian soldiers, are heroes, and I'm going to let you return to your families or go to Belarus or join the Russian army under contract. Two things are clear. One, clearly the Russian president is trying to divide soldiers from the mutineers or from Prigozhin and his leadership, which ironically is what Prigozhin was trying to do to the Russian president several days ago when he was criticizing everybody in the Russian Ministry of Defense. But it also seems clear to me, Mona, that he hasn't decided what to do. He wasn't backing down, but he was not clear in his message, as the elements suggest.
And you just quoted Putin's remarks. Given the speech that he gave and the Wagner revolt, what does this mean for the ongoing war in Ukraine? Can you give us the big picture?
I think it is a huge opportunity right now for the Ukrainians to advance their counter-offensive, which obviously we know has gotten underway to some extent. Look, the greatest thing that the Ukrainians have going for them right now is Russian civil strife and division. The Russians themselves are, obsessed with all of the political fractures that are happening within the country. One Ukrainian I overheard and spoke with recently said this is the best single thing that could have happened to us in the entire last 2-year conflict. We'll see what happens. But right now, it's not good news for Vladimir Putin, nor is it good news for Yevgeny Prigozhin.
And we've reported that the Wagner leader has reportedly pointed at Russia's Department of Defense in his statements, but he hasn't directly made those remarks to Putin. So why make that distinction?
Mona, it's fascinating, isn't it? Prigozhin didn't go after Putin. He's not dumb. We know that Putin needs a scapegoat, right? Prigozhin knows that. So today it's Prigozhin and the other commanders of the Wagner Group. If the war continues to go badly for the Russians, which we think it probably will, as the evidence of the last 18 months has suggested, then he also has his own military. Defense Minister Shoigu, Gerasimov, and others to actually point out and basically say, I'm going to scapegoat you now. Prigozhin may be desperate, but he's really smart. He's gone after the Ministry of Defense and the institutional people who represent those, what he would call incompetent and underperforming institutions, not Putin himself, whom he knows still holds the ultimate power, although weakened.
Wendy, thank you for putting this into context for us. We appreciate your time.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.